Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. Join with Jack and Brian. I promise you it won't be a Packers podcast, but at the same time, there's just certain things you can't escape when Jack and Brian are in the same room together. But Jack, you're joining us all the way from the UK. I guess I have to say good afternoon.
Yeah, it's just gone 1 o'clock. So yeah, good afternoon.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
And then Brian, you're like 8 hours away in the other time zone.
Yep.
Are you fully awake on the West Coast?
Kind of. I've been up for about 15 minutes, so I think it's good enough.
So we are here to continue the breakdown of the defensive line class. And we're going to be podcasting on 8 specific players, 8 specific defensive linemen. And every week, Jack, Brian, and there's a few others that aren't here right now, will be discussing their current evaluations on these 8 players. Keeping in mind that this podcast is being done before Halloween. So we are live. It's Sunday, October 26th. So this is a mid-season evaluation of the players. It is not a final evaluation of the players. So the players we're going to talk about today are Bear Alexander from Oregon, DeMonte Capehart from Clemson, Kenyatta Jackson Jr. from Ohio State, Patrick Payton from LSU, Clev Lubin from Louisville, Damon Wilson Jr. from Missouri, Anthony Smith from Minnesota, and then we will close out the show with Joshua Josephs from Tennessee. Jack, what did you have on Bear Alexander?
I really liked him. I was pleasantly surprised by the tape. He really caught my eye in the Penn State game. I wasn't actually looking to watch him first and foremost, but he just kept jumping off the screen. I think the first step, quickness, is there. Obviously, he was a highly touted recruit when he first came on the scene. I know there's been some challenges he's had in terms of his time at Georgia and USC, maybe some of his own making. But you can see the kind of high-level recruiting background on tape in terms of the athleticism. He's not the biggest guy, like he's 302, but I thought he played bigger than that. He's tough to move, good anchor strength, heavy hands. I love the motor. I knew that there was some maybe character concerns, and sometimes you feel like with guys like that, the motor's not always there on tape. But like, I really liked that part of his game. There's definitely technical things that there's scope to clear up. I think sometimes leverage can be an issue. His pass rushing technique, I love the effort, but he's not a polished technician, I don't think, just yet. I think the off-field point that I've mentioned is probably going to be the biggest blot on his scouting report, certainly from an NFL perspective. I know he was at a number of different high schools, and then he was at Georgia, and then he was at USC, and then he kind of left USC mid-season last year. But if he's able to kind of answer those concerns and put them behind him, I think he's got quite a bright future at the NFL level.
And Jack, are you day 2 or day 3 on Bear Alexander right now?
Late day 2, I think, for me at the moment. Yeah.
Good. Brian, what do you think of Bear Alexander?
Yeah, Jack hit some of the points already. He's listed at 6'3", 303, whatever. On film, to me, he looks like he's probably closer to maybe 6'1", 6'1 and a half, something. He looks pretty short, but of course, and as Jack said, of course, there's been questions off the field with his transferring so many times and rumors and innuendos about why he left this school and that school and stuff like that. So that's obvious stuff. NFL teams will know. We don't know, but obviously it's questions that nobody knows really except for them. But as far as the film, he's got a pretty decent explosiveness off the snap. Against the run game, he can be a little consistent. Sometimes he'll get a little pushed around. He'll get turned and stuff like that by offensive linemen. But his stop-start ability and change of direction is pretty good. He doesn't show a lot of speed, but he's got some pretty quick feet. He can disengage from blockers in the run game, actually. And he just seems to kind of it's weird. I don't know how to quantify it specifically, but like he just has a nose for being able to find the running backs in the run game. Like just being able to disengage and just tackle them. It's kind of interesting. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how to exactly quantify it, but he just has good vision. He can find them and stuff like that. He gets, of course, because of his height, he fires off the snap pretty low. He can play half man and work his way down the line of scrimmage. And then he can also shoot the gaps, cause havoc in the run game. But again, like I said, he can be a little inconsistent in that. Sometimes he'll get kind of taken out. But he has some good power. Good power in his lower body. He'll use a bull rush, but he does have trouble against like double teams. So I don't think you're gonna be using him as a 0 tech or 1 tech in the NFL. He's probably gonna be more like a 3 tech, 2 high type of stuff like that. But he can hold up against obviously just single blockers, but double teams he gets kind of destroyed. But he's, like I said, he's quick. He can shoot through gaps. He hasn't shown much with his pass rush move. So like Jack said, he hasn't shown much development there yet. It's mostly been like bull rush, like I said. And he's not really bendy, which, it's not really super important, but just something I noticed. Interior guys, you don't really need to be all that bendy, but it's just something I noticed on film. But, he uses length, which limited length he has, but he will use it. He can be at least a little feast and famine, like I said. But I think as far as draft projection, I think I'm a little bit later than Jack, but not too far off. I have him as an early day 3 player.
Okay, so realizing we're really early into the process, Jack, do you think Bear Alexander is a top 5 defensive tackle on your board?
I don't think so. I think there's potential for him to get there, like all the physical traits that you need to be there are there. But I don't think so for me just yet.
Okay. And Brian, do you think his measurables meet the Packers' thresholds?
Possibly. We'll see. He's a little on the shorter side from what they like, but it's not too far off. But I think the off the field issues would be an issue, and the transferring and moving around stuff is kind of would be an issue for them.
Okay. Next player, defensive tackle DeMonte Capehart from Clemson. Brian, you want to kick this one off?
I just wanted me now. Sorry, I got to find my. Whoops. I'm gonna try to find my notes here real quick. Sorry. Actually, just go to Jack real quick. Let me find my.
Okay, go ahead,
Sorry.
Jack.
Yeah. So I thought he's one of those guys where you're watching the tape, and I think quite quickly you can see there are certain things he's really good at and certain things that he's just not going to offer you too much. So his run defense is brilliant. I think he's strong at the point of attack. He's got heavy hands, pretty good length. I think it's like 33.5-inch arms, which for a defensive tackle is pretty good. Quick first step, so you could see him kind of cross-face in the run game, kind of against wide zone, which is good. I think the burst is decent enough, and he absorbs contact well. Like, I don't think he's kind of true nose that you want holding up to double teams consistently, because I think pad level can be a bit of a problem. But I think as a run defender, so like the Georgia Tech tape, particularly from this season, there was quite a lot there that I thought really good. You'll see him kind of engage with guys, and they will go straight backwards into the lap of the running back routinely. So I think as an early down run stuffing defensive lineman, I think there's something there. The challenge, I think, from an evaluation perspective for me is the pass rushing upside. He just doesn't really have much there at the moment. He is basically like a bull rush or bust kind of guy. You don't really see him try much else, and the rare occasions when he does, it doesn't really do much. He doesn't really have many kind of counters either, so if that bull rush fails, he's kind of content to just sit on the block, really. So I think you want to see more from him there, especially he is a 6th-year senior. So you'd like a little bit more technical refinement for a guy who's going to be 24 as a rookie. So yeah, I think that's the kind of concern for me. Now, he's not played an awful lot, throughout his career. He's played like less than 800 snaps to this point. I imagine it'll probably end up around the kind of 1,000 mark. But it's always difficult when you get those guys who are older prospects but haven't played a lot and still need some technical refinement. So I think, if you want a decent early down run stuffing defensive tackle, he's a good player. But I think that might be kind of his role at the pro level.
Okay. So, Brian, what do you think of DeMonte Capehart from Clemson?
Yeah, weirdly enough, I can't find my notes, but I'll just kind of go off my memory the best I can. So kind of similar to what Jack said. Basically, like he's basically just a run defender. Basically, he doesn't get a lot of push in the pass rush game. He hasn't really developed much there. He was kind of stuck behind a bunch of NFL players, basically, so that's why he didn't play much in his first early years. And there was, he would show flashes and stuff here and there and stuff like that early on in his career. And so people thought, he's going to be a guy, once he gets more playing time. And once, some of those guys went with NFL and stuff, it just never seemed to really develop. Like I said, he's shown flashes here and there, but it's not much. It's not enough. It's mostly, like Jack said, is bull rush, and then that's about it as far as in the pass rush game. And then even in the run game, he's not like destroying blockers. He's not like blowing up run game per se, like getting the backfield and stuff like that, but he's holding up to blockers, he's holding up to double teams, stuff like that. But just not really causing any sort of havoc or any kind of issues, anything like that for offensives. But, like I said, he's a decent run defender. He's got good size. He's strong. There maybe some team may think there's still some upside with him, even though he's a 6-year guy, just because he hasn't played a super lot. He's even had like a knee injury where he missed some time and stuff like that. So, but I still think he's probably just basically a rotational, like nose tackle type of player in the NFL.
Okay. So if I'm listening to both of you, I heard what I think I heard is draftable grade, likely day 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes you don't even have to give the grade, and I already know what it is. I can just tell from listening. Yep. Okay, so Jack, I know as we were talking pre-show, you have some opinions on Kenyatta Jackson Jr. from Ohio State, the edge. Do you want to kick this one off and let everybody know why you might be the wet blanket?
Yeah, I don't want to be the party pooper on the Kenyatta Jackson thing, but I think I'm definitely lower than most. I don't know whether it's just like when you turn on tape for an Ohio State edge, you're like, okay, I'm expecting something good here, because they're nearly all like high level recruits. So I watched the Texas game and I watched the Washington game. Now, quick mention of Anthony Russo. He said to watch the Wisconsin game, which I've not got around to yet because I know he quite likes him. So that is on my list to do. I suppose if I'll start off with the positives, because it's always a nice way to do it. He's got good size, good length. I think he's strong at the point of attack. There's a decent floor as a run defender, and you could see him. Ohio State will kick him inside at times, and he'll work over guards, and there's enough strength there. Like, I know sometimes these guys do this at college, and people go, "Oh, they've got alignment versatility," and a lot of the time you go, "No, they don't," because when you actually move them inside, they're not very good. Just because they move them there, that doesn't mean they're alignment versatile. He does have that, and I think he can kick inside a bit and work well there. I do like the hand placement and punch timing. I think that is pretty good. I just didn't see much juice, and I didn't see a very detailed pass rush plan. Like, he'll get moves, he'll move guys with the bull rush, and like near the end of the Washington game, I think he got a hit on the quarterback with a swim, which gives me some hope that like there is something there. But I think that lack of juice can sometimes mean the bull rush isn't kind of as reliable in terms of converting speed to power. And he doesn't shed blocks consistently. Like, he'll move guys, or he'll at least sustain and kind of hold his ground. But there are times where I want him to shed the block and make the play, and it feels like it's just not quite there. So I don't know. I think I've seen some people say they think he's a good athlete. I'm interested in what Brian thinks, but I don't know. It didn't pop to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, but I'm interested.
So, Jake, didn't pop as in you would be more day 3 than day 2, or you're just...
He's day three. Day three for me. Again, it's kind of like a different. They're obviously different because they play different positions. But like we were saying with Capehart, like you get the floor as a run defender, and I think there's enough there that if you're a team who likes the kind of big bodied edge, I think there's like a role for him. It's just, is he ever going to be a big difference maker, splash plays in the backfield? I don't think so. I think he's a guy in a rotation.
Brian, what do you think of Kenyatta Jackson Jr. from Ohio State?
Yeah, I think I probably like him a little better than Jack, but I see Jack's points. So yeah, like Jack said, he's a big dude. He's like 6'6", 265 listed, but he looks thin for that. So either he's weighs less than, which I don't think he weighs less than. I think he's just got a big frame. So I think he could probably even put on another 10 pounds if he wanted. But yeah, he's like Jack said, he's long. He's strong as up holes in the ground game. He has good base. Like you said, he's played interior at times and he's held up in the run game against guards and stuff like that in college, which obviously college is from the NFL, but still that shows you, his strength and his power and stuff like that. He can hold up at least, and he can probably even do that in the NFL at times. And then, he showed a bull rush when he plays even inside. He's been able to bull rush some guards and stuff. So obviously he's able to bull rush tackles. And then he'll bull rush them. He'll just shuck them sometimes on the tackles and just tackle the back or the quarterback or whatever. He's got a pretty strong upper body. Speaking of the Washington game, he pretty much forklift on one play the Washington right tackle. He was just forklift. I was like, oh my gosh. His feet are okay. They're not the quickest, but he's got some decent quickness in his feet. But as far as pass rush moves, he hasn't shown much yet. He's shown like a juke, and then he's tried to do a spin a couple times, but it didn't really go much of anywhere. Didn't really do much with it. But he's got good vision. He keeps his eyes on the ball. It comes off low, which is pretty good for a guy who's 6'6", and gets good leverage. He will sometimes get pushed around in the run game. I've noticed he will, and then he'll get kind of basically like into a what do you call it? He'll like stall with offensive linemen in the run game, but he'll try too hard to try and get past him or something, and he'll end up getting himself turned and pushed instead of just saying square and realizing, okay, like I'm not getting into the backfield. Let me just at least hold my end up, hold up my gap. But he'll also play half man, which is good. When he's the backside defender, he's got really good endurance. Some of the games I watched, he's played like, I think one game I watched, he played every snap until like late fourth quarter, and then he missed like I think 6 or 7 snaps, and then he came in and finished out the game. So he missed like 6 snaps in the game. He played a lot, so that's always obviously good. And then one thing that was weird with watching him though was it was really hard to get a good feel for how much bend he has, because you don't see him try and take the outside track. You don't see him try and bend the edge. It's mostly trying to run through a guy's face or power rushing him back and stuff like that. So as far as that, I'm not sure. I want to see more of him trying to bend the edge, so I get a good idea whether he has much bend. Right now, I'd say he probably doesn't have much, but it's hard to tell. But as a pass rusher, he's kind of one of those slow burn pass rusher. It takes him a while to get there. And then, but his upside, I think, is as a complimentary pass rusher. I think he should go back to school and develop more pass rush moves. And I think actually a guy that he kind of reminds me of a little bit is LVN, just not as athletic, but he kind of reminds me of him a little bit.
So, Brian, did you say that he does have the option to go back to school and play one more year? Yeah,
he's a redshirt junior.
And do you think that's the most likely outcome?
Probably. I mean, if he's going to get, late day 2 grades or day 3 grades or something, it would make sense for it to go back and just collect the NLI money.
Okay, so the next player, I know we covered Patrick Payton when he was at Florida State last year. He's transferred to LSU. Brian, was it a good move for Patrick Payton to go back to LSU?
I don't think so. Well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, I think it's a better program, obviously, at least at this point right now. But I just think he's kind of limited in what he can do. He's 6'5", 250 with 34-inch arms, so he's got long length, but he's really thin. His body, he looks like thin build. He looks like a wide receiver basically out there. He might, I don't know if he can be able to put much more weight on his body because he's got a thin frame. He's really quick up the field though, but he takes a lot of false steps. His effort will kind of wane a little bit here and there. It's kind of inconsistent. His pads will get high sometimes during reps, which causes him to lose leverage, obviously, because he is a taller player anyway. He's shown flashes of just being able to be a really dangerous backside defender. Like if you don't block him, he'll fly in there and he'll tackle that running back. And he doesn't get completely. He's okay as a run defender, at least for his size, but he's still, like I say, his pads will rise sometimes. He'll get pushed around and stuff like that. But his change of direction is kind of average for a guy his size. You would think it'd be better, but it's not that great. He struggles with finishing plays. He'll miss sacks and tackles at times when he has a shot at him. But he can get up the field when sometimes he will overthink too. So that'll kind of cause him to become slow and delay and not make plays and stuff like that. He looks best coming out of wide 9. I don't think you really want to put him anything else other than wide 9. He's shown at times he can stack and shed, but again, inconsistent with that. But he lacks. He's not really that bendy again for like a smaller kind of guy. Like as far as weight wise, he's not really bendy. He tries to dip under players and he'll lose his balance and fall over and get pushed down and stuff like that. He's shown he tried to use the long arm, but he doesn't use it very much. It's not that good. I think if he can find a way to put on some bulk, he might be able to use it more, but it doesn't show much. I've seen him try and use a spin. It looked okay, but it still needs a lot more work. He just doesn't show much as far as his moves. No real counters, not much of a pass rush plan. Sometimes his vision is kind of questionable where it doesn't seem like he knows what's going on. I have like a mid-late day 3 pick on him right now.
Okay. Jack, what do you have on Patrick Payton of LSU?
Yeah, I think Brian and I see him pretty similar. I think there's the length there. There's the burst that you'd want. I think he can be kind of a situational pass rusher type. I think the burst is good. There are a couple of reps. Now, I do feel like he's maybe a bit of a snap jumper, but like when he does time it, like he's really quick. And he will keep his hands active and he'll try different things. Like Brian said, some of them are more successful than others. He has a ton of battered passes, which I did notice on tape. I can't remember which game it was I was watching, but I think he had 2 or 3 in one of the games this season, which I think there's a kind of a situational awareness there of understanding passing lanes. He's got the length to kind of do that. But yeah, he's skinny. He lower half, you just don't see him anchor brilliantly in the run game. And yeah, Brian mentioned the balance issues, which was something I had written down in my notes as well. Like there are too many reps where he's just kind of on the floor. I think situational pass rusher with the kind of length and burst that you can see a team wanting to take a flyer on with a day 3 pick, and maybe hope that he can develop at least a little bit more functional strength. But he is, in a more situational type of role for me.
Okay. So next player, Clev Lubin from Louisville. So I know Ryan Sparks, who is a frequent follower of the page, he's even guest appeared on a couple podcasts, loves Lubin. Jack, where are you on the Louisville edge?
I quite liked him. I wasn't sure what to expect because I'd not really kind of seen much about him going into the tape, but yeah, I came away pleasantly surprised. He doesn't have like an ideal build. Like I know he's listed at 6'3", 250. I don't think he's that big. I don't know how big he is, but he doesn't look that big, and his length doesn't look great on tape. But it kind of didn't really seem to matter too much a lot of the time. His leverage is excellent, which does make me think he is definitely smaller than 6'3", because he is consistently under opposing players' pads, which does allow him to kind of get more push than you would think a guy of that size would. There were a number of reps. I watched the Virginia game and the Miami game where he is just kind of walking guys back into the pocket. I think the burst is good. I wouldn't say great, but I think it's good enough. And he does have a number of ways to win. So you see him win with the bull rush, as I mentioned. You see him winning with inside moves as well. didn't see as much kind of around the arc, but I think he's got enough there to be kind of at least functional. I think the frame means he won't be for everybody, right? There will be some teams who will just have him off their board because he doesn't meet either the height, size, or length threshold. And I think you do see sometimes against longer tackles where if they can get into his frame earlier, like a lot of guys who just lack arm length, like he's going to struggle to consistently dislodge them and kind of get into the backfield. But I came away pleasantly surprised. It's not normally the kind of player I go for, the kind of stockier, short-armed, sword-off rushers. But I think like he's not in the same league as Ruben Bain from Miami. But it's that thing where if you're a stockier guy with maybe less than ideal length, you've got to have a detailed pass rush plan. And I think Lubin does have that. And I think that does allow him to mitigate it. So I'm, interested to see how he looks for the rest of the season. But I really enjoyed his tape.
Brian, Clev Lubin from Louisville.
Yeah, I've been a Lubin guy since he was at Coastal Carolina last year. So yeah, I loved his film last year, and he's shown a lot of improvements this year. Like Jack said, he's listed at 6'3", 250. He looks like he's probably a little bit shorter than that, probably like maybe 6'2", and maybe like 240, 245, something like that. But like Jack said, he's got the slower body, so he's built low to the ground. So it gives him really good leverage. So it gets really good leverage. Again, like Jack said as well, his length is not great. It's under 30, probably under 30, 33 if I had to guess, probably 32 and a half, something like that maybe. But he's really short, explosive in short areas. They line him up. They mostly use him more as kind of a stand-up, like 3-4 quote-unquote outside linebacker, which I think as far as NFL is probably what you're going to want him to do and look for him to do, just because of his size and his length and stuff like that. You're probably going to use him as a stand-up rusher. And even Louisville, had him zone drop a few times. And he looked okay doing it. So it looked like he can do it, in at least in the NFL, at least just short areas and stuff like that. But again, even though he's a smaller, shorter guy, he's got a really good bull rush. It's really good. He's a really nice bull rush. He's got a stab. Again, because of his size, he gets really good leverage when he's rushing the passer and using power. Again, he even holds his ground really well in the run game. I think just because of his size and his ability to get leverage and his strength and stuff like that. But sometimes he does have trouble getting up blocks. Of course, I think that's again due to his size sometimes and his length. It gets sometimes pushed around a little bit. But he continues to work his hands. His hands are really strong. He'll shuck the offensive lineman. In the passing game. They've even used him as a looper. I've seen him go from all the way from like the C gap all the way around to the opposite side B gap. So he's pretty athletic there at least. And then he can, he'll attack running backs, he'll attack fullbacks, take them out basically. I think it's for a smaller guy, his change direction is okay. It's not great. But he does show a good mixture at times of being patient and aggressive, or at least not too aggressive at times when he's coming from the backside. He's a guy you can't leave him unblocked basically in any sort of play. He's gonna cause havoc in the run game or the pass game. He's got pretty good closing speed, not an elite. He's not a freaky athlete, but he's got good enough closing speed at least. Does a good job disengaging when he's going through stunts. He fights. He gets mad. He gets pissed off at times. I've seen him. Towards the end of play, if blockers going a little too far, he'll get pissed off, start fighting, and want to fight them basically. So you like that. But again, kind of like what Jack said, if he's going against a bigger offensive lineman, guy with length, that will give him trouble. But he's shown, being able to play some half man. I think his like kind of finesse pass rush moves need some work. Like he's going to need those just because he's smaller. So he's going to develop those, especially to work off of his power and his strength, speed to power, and then converting to this and that and countering and stuff like that. But sacking and shedding needs to obviously improve, that's obviously because of his size. He can play sideline. The sideline when asked to contain, he does a good job, doesn't over pursue, has a nice rip move, doesn't use it enough. I think he could use it more. And it could probably be a little bit better, but I think could be a potentially good move for him if he develops a little bit more. He's got a swim, which again, I think he should use that more too as well. He's actually showing he can chain some moves together, which is nice. He'll chain together a outside fake with a swim. He can be effective against like the bigger, slower guys, but again, like the guys with length will give him trouble, like I said. But again, he brings some pop. He's physical, and He's tried to use a spin move at times, but it still needs some work. But yeah, I really like his play. And then it's funny, he's got an interesting background. I was like bringing this up because it's really interesting. He's a former basketball player, at least like in high school and stuff. So it's kind of interesting because he's so small. But he actually started out in Army, and then he went to junior college, and then he went to Coastal Carolina, and then he went to Louisville. So it's kind of interesting background too. So player I like. I'd say probably day 2 player, but I think he's going to be specific to certain teams.
Yep. And Brian, that leads me, I guess, to my question. So Jack, Clev Lubin, 4-3 edge, 3-4 outside linebacker. Can he do both, or do you think he's only an edge?
I think, 3-4 outside linebacker is probably where you want him. I just think if you're getting him hand in the dirt type thing, it's the frame, I think, is going to be the issue there, which is why I think, as Brian said, I think he could be one of those players where people end up with higher grades on him, but he goes a bit later just because he's going to appeal to a smaller number of teams than perhaps some of the other guys on this list.
Okay. And Brian, how about you? 3-4 outside linebacker, 4-3 edge. Which role do you think is better?
Yeah, similar to Jack, 3-4 basically edge. I think just because of size and his length and stuff like that. I think there's maybe some 4-3 teams that might be interested in him, like maybe like a team like a Philly or something like that. But yeah, I think 3-4 is his best fit.
Okay. See, and neither of you said it when you gave your original thing, but like I'm just sitting here listening to you guys. Like, how would I use the player, or what teams would likely draft him? Okay, so this player, Damon Wilson Jr. from Missouri. I see a lot about him on Twitter, but I haven't heard too many draft professors talking about him on podcasts. Brian, what do you like about Damon Wilson Jr.?
Yeah, I think it's the talk mostly is not trying to say this as a disparaging point, but I think a lot of talk is because he was a former 5-star kid who went to Georgia, was a backup mostly at Georgia. I think his career high at Georgia was 3 sacks in a season or 2 sacks in a season. So I think that's a lot of the hype is he was a 5-star guy. He went to Georgia and he transferred over to Missouri, and he's been having a good year. So I think that's creating some of the hype. But anyway, at least let's go to the scouting report. 6'4", 250. He's reportedly runs in the 4.6 range, but he's long. He's got linear. He's kind of got a sprinter's build or a wide receiver's build. With he's got thin calves, but he's got really long arms. We don't have official numbers on it, but I would guess he's in that 35-inch range. They're really long. But Missouri's used him kind of all over, both sides, left, right, and they've had him stand up and hand in the dirt. Supposedly he's a freak athlete. He's explosive. He can chase plays down the line of scrimmage. He's a patient backside defender. He's got pretty decent bend. I would say maybe a little above average, not like elite or freak or anything like that, but probably a little above average. He can get around the arc pretty quickly. He'll use his long arms. He's got a long arm and a stab move he'll use. Can play half man and he can plays good to contain. Now has some natural strength. Actually, I noticed for a guy that's just 250, he'll use a juke and a stutter step, but those need some work. He has upper body strength and leg power to push offensive tackles back into the pocket. Has a decent rip. It could be effective if he combines it with some speed to power because he's got some natural speed and power. So if you combine that with a rip, I think that could be a developmental type thing. He's shown a little bit of a speed rip, which is pretty nice when he's used it, but hasn't used it a super lot. I think because, like I said, because of his natural strength, he could stand to develop a speed to power move. If he used that more, I think that would help him a lot. But he doesn't really get much move in the run game, but he can kind of hold up. His hands are pretty active. He just needs to refine them and improve his timing. His timing's a little off at times. Even though he has the length, he could use it more, I think, just because he's so long. But he's flashed a nice little head bob and stuff when he pass rushes. But when he's trying to rush the passer, he kind of gets bogged down. He'll kind of start good, but then he'll kind of stalemate with the guy at times and kind of get stuck. A couple of times I've seen him flash a little bit of a two-hand shuck, which kind of looked kind of nice, but again, didn't use it enough. He just hasn't shown any counters or really doesn't string to get moves together too much a couple of times, but you'd like to see that again. improve. At times, you still see flashes of how he played at Georgia when he would just try to run through a guy's face, which then that's again, he's improving it, but he still sees him doing it sometimes when that's just not his game, just from his physical standpoint, from his talent standpoint. He doesn't show a lot of inside moves. I like to see him do that more because I think it makes it easier for offensive tackle set up on the outside and just block him. He needs to develop some counters again. When he goes outside and then counters back inside, he hasn't done that. That would help him, obviously. And a weird thing too I noticed about him was before the snap, he's constantly like kind of moving around and stuff like that, like kind of adjusting his stance and stuff like that. And sometimes it's screwing up because they snap the ball when he's in the middle of moving, and so it throws off his balance. So that's obviously it's messing up. It's causing him to be messed up for the play because his balance is already off, so he's starting messed up already. So he needs to really stop moving around so much pre-snap. And then if he incorporated like an outside fake to his game, that could really be really good, but he hasn't done that yet. But he's shown, like I said, he's shown some flashes of being able to move, combine, chaining some moves together, like his bull rip. He's not shown the speed to power, like I said. He will sometimes occasionally get pissed off when he almost got into a fight against Kansas. I thought that was pretty cool. At the end of the play, he almost got into a fight. But he's flashed some pop in his hands. He's just not consistent with it. He tried to spin move occasionally, but it doesn't really show much. So honestly, my opinion would be for him to go back to school for one more year and just work on his pass rush.
Okay. Jack, where are you and Damon Wilson Jr.?
Yeah, I can see why people are intrigued by him because I think, as Brian's mentioned, like the frame's good, it's good length. You see flashes. I think the motor is good. The effort and kind of consistent pursuit effort is really good. I think for me, like I don't see him yet as like a high-end player either as a pass rusher or a run defender. You can see there being the upside there, and as Brian said, there's like you see him try different moves. It's just that they're not quite refined yet. As a run defender, it was kind of weird. I didn't feel like he was actively like a problem. Like he wasn't consistently getting like blown off the ball, but he just didn't ever really make plays. And after watching him, I was like, am I just like, is these just the games I've watched? Am I just imagining this? And I went and looked, and I think he's got 3, I don't know about this past week, but he had, I think, 3 run stops on like 100 run defense snaps, which I think is one of the, certainly in the SEC, I think there are only like 2 edges lower or 3 edges lower. So it's not that he's getting pushed off the ball, but you feel like he's also not making many plays. And maybe not helped by the fact that he's playing opposite an edge who is a very good and reliable run defender. So, yeah, I'd probably agree with Brian. I think, again, you can see if he was to declare why somebody would just go, you know what, like he's got that NFL-ready build. He has length. He's got burst. We can kind of coach up the rest of it. So I can see why there might be somebody who's willing to buy in on the traits. But I think, yeah, it's just a technical refinement point, again, where another year in college is probably what's best. And with the way things go these days, that's probably what he'll end up doing.
Okay. So the next player, Anthony Smith from Minnesota. And Jack, you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, I think he's an interesting player. So he's obviously huge, 6'6", 285. He looks like he's got good length. And I think, as you'd expect for a guy who's 285, he can push the pocket and kind of get guys moving. There was more kind of lateral quickness than I thought I'd see. There was a few reps where he kind of crossed face and won with an inside counter, which I didn't maybe expect for a guy of that size. I think where I struggle with him is kind of seeing what his role is in the NFL. He feels a bit like a tweener to me at the moment. His pad level, he plays like a guy who's 6'6". I didn't love the pad level. I think the pass rush plan is, again, one of those other guys who I just think there's room to develop there. And I didn't see the juice to kind of win outside, like around the arc, which then means that tackles can kind of sit on the power moves and they know what's coming. But then when he kicked inside, so this is where like him and Kenyatta Jackson differ for me is that when he kicked inside, I did see him get moved more than Jackson did in terms of the run game. So I didn't feel like he was a guy that I could reliably just shift inside and play kind of 4-eye and he hold up there. So I don't know whether his route is to add a few pounds and try and kind of carve out more of that interior role, or if it's cutting some of that weight. I don't think it's bad weight, but I also don't feel like you need to be that size to play the edge. So he just feels like a bit of a muddled player for me, where like sometimes this is where I think it's tricky when you're looking at how these guys project to the NFL, and it's like, okay, but where that's that kind of difference between the alignment versatility and the tweener point. Like he does play in a few spots, but I didn't see one spot where I was like, oh, that's him. That's his home. That's where he's going to live at the NFL level. So he's probably the lowest, I think, looking at my notes, I think he is the lowest ranked guy I've got out of this list today. As much as there are, like I say, some good kind of physical traits there. I wasn't wowed by the tape.
So, Brian, how about you? Where are you on Anthony Smith from Minnesota?
Yeah, so as Jack said, he's listed at 6'6", 285. He doesn't look that big to me, so I don't know if it's they list him bigger than he is, or he just has a big frame and he can add on more weight. Looking at him, he looks like maybe, but he still looks pretty big. But it's looking to me, he looks like he's 6'5", 275, but we'll see, of course, obviously, if it comes out. So this year's his first full year as a starter. So yeah, his length looks pretty good. I find he has some good explosiveness off the snap. He's got quick feet. He can at times I notice he can almost like teleport over gaps and stuff sometimes. So he's got some pretty quick feet. But to kind of what Jack said, he's kind of stiff. He's not really all that bendy. His pad level's a little too high at times, and that exposes his chest. So that obviously causes issue too, where guys can get to his chest. But again, he's got nice versatility where he can line up at different spots, and he has lined up different spots, like you said, as far as like similar to Kenyatta Jackson, but just not at the same level as Kenyatta Jackson does it. But he still can line up in guards and hold his own. He's able to extend his arms outside his frame and hold the edge. He's actually pretty. I felt like he was kind of quick around the corner. He's got some good closing speed, at least in a short area, not long term, or sorry, like 40, or not like running a 40 or anything like that. Especially at least for his size. I did see a couple times he actually tried to bust out a Euro step with an inside cross drop, which is pretty nice. Flash to swim, but it wasn't really all that good. And he'll come off the line a little too high, so he's got to really improve that. Which obviously gets him pushed around the run game. I think that causes his inconsistent play in the run game. But he shows pop in his hands. I saw him even use the shuck and use the stab with his length. He's obviously got long. But kind of like what Jack said, he'll get washed out in the run game sometimes. But his endurance is really good. He plays a lot of snaps. He plays hard. He'll chase plays down. Another thing I didn't like was his like situational. Well, that's what I'm calling it, at least for now, is his like a situational awareness or peripheral vision. At least he'll kind of get into like a tunnel vision when he's attacking his blocker or whatever, and the play goes this way or something goes by, and it goes past him. He doesn't pay attention. He's not noticing. The running back runs past him, and he just completely ignores it. He's just focused on his blocker. So that's obviously something that needs to be improved. And then he's got good patience at times. He could use his length more. I don't think he uses it enough. I think that's where Kenyatta Jackson, again, like I said, is a little bit better as far as those inside stuff. I did he shows like a little simple, but it's an effective outside fake with a rip. That looked pretty nice. Again, has a bull rush, but it still needs to be better. He had a really nice one against Nebraska. Actually, I think that was last week. He can be actually, they even use him as a looper at times. It looked pretty effective as doing that. Just because of his size and his explosiveness. But again, I think he should go back to school and just work on his pad level, his run defense, and just improving his pass rush moves. Similar to Jack, though, at the same time, I'm just not sure where you play him. I think a lot of it's depend upon how he measures out and how his testing goes when he does come out. Where are you gonna play him?
Okay, so both of you are day 3 on Anthony Smith, and it sounds like late day 3.
I would say early day 3, but I mean,
okay.
I still think he should go back to school.
Okay. Yeah, I'd probably be like, mid to late day 3 for me.
And then the last player we were covering today, Joshua Josephs, the edge from Tennessee. Brian, what did you see with Joshua Josephs?
Yeah, so let's see. Joshua Josephs, we have verified measurements on him, 6'2" and 5'8", so just under 6'3", 237, so a little bit on the smaller side, but he's got really good length. He's got 34 and 3/4 inch arms, almost 35 inch arms. But again, that size does show on film. He's on the thin side. He looks small. He looks like almost like a safety sometimes, almost kind of like a big safety. But his length does help him. He uses his length actually pretty well. His frame, though, I'm not sure if it could hold much more weight, is because he's got kind of a thin waist. But I think he can get to like 245-ish. But he can turn his hips and he can run. Excuse me. But he's shown he can cover some, so I think that's probably what's going to be best for him to be like a 3-4 outside linebacker. He's pretty athletic, as far as turning and running. It looks like he probably even covers some tight ends. But he accelerates really quickly. He's got really good speed. He can bend the corner a bit, not an elite bend, but pretty good bend. Whoops, where'd it go? Sorry. So and then he can chase down quarterbacks that are scrambling. He stays active when he's asked to drop. He keeps his feet moving. He can, despite him not being really all that big, he can play a lot of snaps, so that's obviously good. He's got good endurance. He's used an outside fake, but he needs to be faster with it, just because I think that could be an effective move for him because of the size and his speed and stuff like that. He's got a nice chop he's showing, but again, because of the size, he does get pushed around the run game. Even at times, tight ends have been able to handle him pretty easily in the run game. But he's shown some improvements in 2025. When I went back and watched last year's film and then this year's, he's shown some improvement in there. So the hope is probably that possibly that he can continue to get better. He has tried to use a bull rush, but it doesn't really do much. Doesn't get much movement. But again, with this using power, he's shown a little bit of improvement in that this year. Not a lot, but at least a little bit from last year. So again, another thing I think NFL teams can look at and think that, okay, maybe he can continue to improve this. But he is explosive off the snap, especially when he can time up the snap. He looks really. There's a couple times he looked. I thought he jumped off the sides, but he didn't. But he has a push-pull rip that has shown some potential. And again, he's a guy you don't want to leave uncovered in the run game or the pass game. He'll make plays. He'll come backside. He'll shoot gaps and stuff like that. He can knife and explode to the backfield and get the back again, or pressure the quarterback, sack the quarterback, whatever. Especially on the backside. They use him as a looper on tight ends, TE stunts. But I don't think he has the power to be able to do it at that, because when you're coming up against those guards, you need to show a little bit of power, and he just doesn't. I would like to see more of a pass rush plan on him. I haven't seen a lot. Like I said, I mentioned some moves, but I still like to see more plan, especially him being a smaller guy. You want him to have more of a plan and have more moves and stuff like that, be able to counter and can just chain stuff together and stuff like that. But yeah, I think his best fit would be as a 3-4 outside linebacker, maybe even starting out as a DPR.
Okay, and is your grade day 1 or day 2?
Late day 2.
Okay, Jack.
Yeah, I'm looking at my notes and I'm hearing Brian say his. I'm like, oh, we see this pretty similar. Yeah, like I think the good stuff there is, I think, the natural leverage that you get from being kind of 6'2" and 5'8". I think that's a plus. The burst is good, as Brian mentioned. I think he can win around the outside. I think that's fine. The concern with me is so for a guy who I don't think is great against the run, because I don't think he's got that kind of core strength or size to really hold up, he's still a little bit too one-dimensional as a pass rusher in terms of just like he'll have different moves, but he's only really going to win around the outside or try and win around the outside. Like Brian mentioned the bull rush. Like with a guy with nearly 35-inch arms, you'd want him to try and burst. So he's got length and burst. You go, okay, cool. This guy should be able to at least do something as a bull rusher, and he'll start and it just like it goes nowhere. there's no pop. So I think that he needs, if he's going to carve out a kind of consistent NFL role, you're going to need to have more than that, because I don't really mind if you win like inside. You don't need a bull rush, but you either need to be able to win inside and outside, or outside and through the chest. But at the moment, I think he's just a bit too kind of reliant on that that burst and winning around the outside shoulder. So there's also the thing with like, and I don't think this is maybe not a him problem, but the way that Tennessee run their defensive line with the kind of rotation, you feel like he's getting taken off the field all the time. This happened last year with James Pierce and Omar Norman a lot, where like they are just rotated all the time. So I think he's played. Last year was his career high, 365 snaps. Now he should eclipse that this year, but again, he's like, I watched the Georgia game this year, the Arkansas game, the Alabama game, but he played less than 30 snaps against Alabama. It was just like frustrating from that perspective, because if you're not a full-time every down player in college, there's not many guys who then go on and become an every down guy in the NFL. So I think there's definitely a role for him given the length and the kind of burst. I think Brian mentioned him being a DPR, at least initially, and I definitely agree with that. Again, it's just whether you're going to get an awful lot more. I'm not sure you will.
Okay, so Jack, I like that you invoked the name James Pierce. So Brian, who did you have as a higher rated prospect, Joshua Josephs or James Pierce?
Oh, definitely Pierce.
Definitely Pierce, and you're like, it's not close.
Yeah, I mean they are kind of like Jack said, they are kind of somewhat similar players, but no, Pierce, because Pierce is his explosiveness is better. He's got even more. I think he's got more power. It's just a better athlete overall. I think he's just a better player.
And Jack, how about you? How close was Josephs to Pierce?
There's a good sized gap, and I say this as someone who was lower than most on Pierce. I think he was like my edge 9 last year. I for me at the moment, Josephs is like top of day 3 probably, which surprised me because I'd seen coming into the season anyway people talking him up as a potential first rounder, but I'm not sure I'm on board with that. Okay.
And then as I was listening to you guys, I had flashbacks to a Buffalo Bills first round bust, and that was the guy from Penn State. Oh, I had his name, and now Aaron Maben. Are either of you familiar with Aaron Maben? So Brian,
I'm old, so I remember, yes.
So how does Josephs compare to Aaron Maben?
That was a while ago. I'm trying to remember.
Oh, yeah. Maben's already played himself out of the league. I mean, I'm going back 15 years. I recognize that.
Yeah, like I said, I'm old like you, so I remember Aaron Maben. I'm trying to remember way back then. I think Maben was a little bit better of a player. I mean, the fact that he went in the first round is kind of a sign that he was a better player. But I think he was a little bit bigger.
You see, you're giving way too much credit to Marv Levy, the general manager.
Yeah, well, but even still, I mean, even if he went day 2, it's still
fair enough.
Yeah, I remember him being a little bit better, but I would say he probably would have been a better. I would have if I'm comparing them as prospects coming out from what I can remember, I would have had Maben a little bit higher.
Okay. So let's pause for podcaster identification. Jack, I'm thrilled to have you involved with Draft Professors. Do you want to let everybody know about all of the content you make and I think you're part of a UK podcast, so feel free to share that with everybody too.
Yeah, thanks. So throughout the season, I'll be doing loads of stuff over at the Touchdown, which is the UK's kind of biggest NFL and NFL draft kind of website. I head up the NFL draft content over there, so you'll get a weekly scouting notebook from me, and you will get a prospect watch article every week, and then as much film as I can post on Twitter as possible between work and life and everything else. So, if you're into draft stuff, which you obviously are if you're watching this, give me a follow if you don't already.
Brian.
Yeah. Just mostly here on Twitter. Not really here, but here too, but of course, but mostly on Twitter, of course, talking draft, talking some Packers stuff. I post clips as well as Jack does. I also have a Substack. It's just Brian Moffitt. You can find it there on Substack. I try to do like a weekly article. I was doing it like a kind of a college football weekend review, but I'm kind of changing it up a little bit because the article was getting way too long. It was too much writing. It was a lot. So I'm kind of making it more kind of draft oriented. A little bit in there about college football, but it's mostly kind of more as far as like a stock up, stock down type of thing, what's going on as far as guys improving their stock and as far as how the draft class is being affected by college football. And again, of course, obviously that includes some college football stuff, like as far as like rankings and teams moving up and down, just some talk about that type of stuff and just interesting games I saw that were interesting results and stuff like that. So there's that. And of course, on here, like I said, and I think that's pretty much it.
Cool. Well, welcome to Draft Professor, everybody. If you have not already, give Brian and Jack a follow. We cannot create this content without Jack and Brian showing up one day a week, podcasting their players. And then if you string it all together, what you get at Draft Professor is 12 podcasts a week, 2 each, Monday through Friday, 1 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday. And we have about 20 different people breaking down the draft class, 8 players at a time. The 8 players that will be discussed Sunday morning next week, we got some good ones. David Bailey from Texas Tech, Darrell Jackson from Florida State, Danny Dennis Sutton from Penn State, Wesley Williams from Duke, Arden Walker from Colorado, Cameron Ball from Arkansas, Lee Hunter from UCF, and Albert Regis from Texas A&M. And if you want to see the rest of the podcast schedule, go find NFL Draft Fanatic on X. Look at the pinned post. It tells you what the podcast schedule is. I'll flash it up on the screen for you here real quickly. So it's scrolling across the bottom. But tomorrow we're doing quarterbacks and defensive line. Tuesdays we're doing wide receiver and offensive line. The Tuesday podcast at 9 features retired NFL offensive lineman Jerry Ostrowski. So if you want to hear a retired NFL player evaluate offensive linemen, that was a good podcast last week, and I'm looking forward to that one this week as well. Wednesday, we do corners and defensive line. Thursdays, we're doing safeties and running backs. Friday is Halloween, so no podcast this week. And then Saturday mornings is offensive line, and then Sunday mornings is defensive line. The next time Friday happens, it will be linebackers early. Linebackers at 7 with James Foster, Sam Teets, Anthony Russo, followed by defensive backs with Ian Cummings and JT Olson. So we have a lot of popular draft people like Jack. Like I said, I'm thrilled that we can have, the best in the UK is coming on Draft Professor to do defensive line. So absolutely love it. For the 106 podcasters at the Draft Professor, for Jack, Brian, myself, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you on a podcast again tomorrow.